to order, please. And I've just got a few comments I'd like to make before we invite the committee chairs to begin their reports. First of all, for those of you that don't take the Hood County News, we have a wonderful headline that I don't know if this is fake news or not, but let me read the important part. TxDOT will begin widening Farm Road 167. The work on 167 will begin midsummer and will be done mostly at night. Natalie Galindo, the PIO of TxDOT, reported. According to Galindo, the widening of 167 will be from Farm Road 4, which is the road to Cleburne, to just past the entrance gate to Pecan. The work will begin midsummer and be done mostly at night. So, yay. We'll see if that happens. I'd also like to make a comment about well, just a couple things in the news. First of all, it's ironic that we will be hosting 6 or 7 women in their 90s, and one, I understand, who is over 100 years of age, who was a WASP, Women's Air Corps service pilots who flew ferried aircraft during the Second World War, and also flew tow planes so that our fighter pilots could get target practice. And these women assisted the war effort during the Second World War to put down totalitarian regimes and fascist ideas that we reject in our democracy. And it's those kinds of things continue, and so I'd like to be mindful of what happened in Manchester, England 2 nights ago. And just wonder why we continue to have those kinds of events in our world. And so I know that Pecan Plantation is far removed from that event, but we're not immune. And if you would join me just in a moment of silence for those young people who were killed in that catastrophe, I'd appreciate it. I'd also like to acknowledge that what we do this morning is we invite our committee chairs to report their proceedings to the board of directors. I'd like to emphasize that governance here in Pecan really depends on volunteer committees that you represent. Without your work, we simply couldn't function as an organization with the efficiency and the effectiveness that we have. And so those of us on the board rely on you and your recommendations and your expertise as you then allow us to continue our progress here in this community. In my mind, it's a ground-up, it's a bottom-up kind of governance and not a top-down kind of governance. So our system of volunteer committees in our community is critical, and is really, you are the foundation for our operation here. And so I know many of us don't say it often enough, but we appreciate your work. And so we thank you very much for that. Well, I see there's been a morphing of Robert Maurer into someone who I don't know, but I guess that you're going to be doing the bylaws report. So if you'd introduce yourself to me, I appreciate it.
I'm Rick Long. I'm filling in for Bob. He and Paulette have another event to attend, but Bob asked me to come and read the minutes from our bylaw committee meeting. Our meeting was May 9th, 2017. Item 1 was Chairman Maurer recognized the following meeting attendees: Ms. Frenson, Mr. Bob Mossberger, J.C. Wright, myself, and we had a guest, our GM, Michael Bartholomew, that was at the meeting. So item 2, Chairman Maurer declared a quorum present. The third item, the minutes of the April 11th meeting were approved with no changes. And the fourth item, we discussed your request to look at the secret ballot or unsigned ballot issue. It was determined that an unsigned ballot would require a bylaws change, and that Bob would provide that feedback to the election committee so that they could prepare a document change request for that purpose. The fifth item, there were no document requests to be considered for this meeting on May 9th. The sixth item, Bob noted that the newly revised membership committee resolution describes different responsibilities for this committee versus those outlined in the bylaws. And after some discussion, the committee decided that the new resolution accurately reflects what the current committee does, and that Bev would talk to the head of the membership committee to encourage them to produce a DCR to more accurately reflect what the membership committee actually does. Those changes in items 4 and 6 would require a membership vote if the DCRs are approved by the bylaw committee and the board of directors, and so that would need to be done for next March. After that, the meeting was adjourned.
Anyone have any comments, questions for bylaws? Okay, Bob Zimsky for finance.
Good morning. My name is Bob Zimsky. For those who don't know me, I'm sitting in as new chairman of the Finance Committee. We met yesterday morning, and we considered 9 ACEs. I understand the format has changed a little bit. I'll just tell you what we're recommending, and then one of the managers will give you more specifics on the ACEs. The first two ACEs that we'll be talking about are for the road and drainage. The first one is 170201, Westover Drainage Improvement, in the amount of $289,463 with an additional 10% contingency. If there's any explanations needed, we have Daniel here that could.
Yeah, Danny, could you explain that project, please?
Okay, this project is a very critical point in the Basin K revamping of the drainage system. What it will end up doing is diverting about 20-25% of the water out of that basin. This watershed actually goes across Wedgefield Drive, continues through number 13 Fairway, and ends up through all our pond system down to the river. Currently, this system we've been working on it for several years, and it is still right at capacity. So to finalize the work on Basin K, I recommend going forward with the Westover bypass.
Questions, Mr. Green?
Yeah, Daniel, a lot of that water comes down Woodlawn and Bell Chase also, doesn't it? Is that going to take some of that water off and divert it?
No, none of the water in this particular area goes through the Woodlawn area.
Okay, thanks.
How does your engineering analyses and projection of work compare to our LIDAR resource? Have we?
They did do a comparison on this project with the new LIDAR that produced our new topography, and they're very confident that the groundwork that was done for this particular project is accurate and correct.
And as an aside, when do you think we'll get a final report from the LIDAR so that we can base all our future drainage work on that?
I currently have all the information on the topography. The LIDAR was the flight for the actual new topography. That was the receivables from the LIDAR. So I do have the information. It's 217 pages, and I also have a disk, so we will be able to reference that and manipulate it as we see fit in the future.
Daniel, a few years ago, there was a list of projects for drainage projects, and
Correct.
there was a project that was postponed because of a legal matter. Is this the project that was postponed?
Correct. This will take care of that issue.
Let me ask it differently. Is that the only reason that we're doing this project, is to take care of that issue?
No. That project was in line to be done anyway, and coincidentally, this issue came up during this process.
Any other questions for Daniel on the Westover project?
Okay, the next one is 170202, the Monticello Drive, or the front entrance road improvement. The cost of this is $645,559 with an additional 10% for contingency if needed.
Go ahead, Daniel.
So what we're looking at here is restoration of the front entrance. I know many of you use the front entrance frequently, and I'm sure you can tell the condition of the road. It is deteriorating rapidly. We did a full engineering study, drew core samples, and from that study we determined the required base. There was some question on the possibility of reducing the cost of this project. So included in the packet there's actually TxDOT standards that show different base thicknesses and hot mix asphalt thicknesses. And to reduce that down to a 2.5-inch asphalt overlay on a 8-inch base, we would basically lose 19 years of life on that road. So we looked to see if we could find somewhere where there was a happy medium. And the best alternative that we found, which is not a very good alternative either, would be to go with the 4-inch overlay as originally proposed with a 10-inch base. And that takes it from a 20-year road to a 7-year road. And we determined that through multiple traffic studies at the front entrance, and by calculating the amount of traffic flow in and out of the front entrance, that's where we came up with the numbers. And in about 20 years' time, we will have just under 1 million vehicles coming in and out of that front entrance. And a large majority of those are going to be large trucks, moving vans, concrete trucks, dump trucks, you name it. So in order to do this project properly, I think we need to stick to the recommended base and overlay requirements.
So we're talking a 12-inch base and a
12-inch
4-inch
base with a 4-inch overlay.
And are we changing any of the right-of-way? Are we widening, adding another lane for resident members for entry there?
We have been working closely with the developer, and they have decided to go ahead and give us a right-of-way to extend the member lane, and you will have an additional about 750 feet of additional member lane for cars to go into. The widening and lengthening will equate to about 900 feet, but about 750 feet that cars can actually sit on.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Daniel?
Yeah, both of these ACs we're recommending. The Finance Committee is recommending the board approve both of those.
And one thing I might add, both of these projects are contingent on the contractor getting both of them, and that brought us to a savings of just over $100,000. If we deny them one project, there will be a loss in savings there.
Daniel, any idea as to when we would be beginning these projects?
The goal would be end of July, 1st of August. The front entrance we intend on having done before the end of August. They anticipate it, if the weather cooperates, it'll be about a 30-day project. The drainage project will start about the same time. There's two different crews. They have a utility crew and a paving crew. And the drainage project, we hope to start a little earlier, and they anticipate it taking 45 to 60 days.
If the 167 project actually occurs, and then we can expect some significant problems going out the front entrance at Pecan, so we may have to start thinking about using the west entrance more during that construction period. We won't be shutting down the front entrance, will we, during the construction?
No, the front entrance, we do not intend on shutting it down. There will be times when it will go down to one lane, and I do recommend posting on the marquees for folks to use the west entrance if possible, for their own convenience.
Okay, yeah. Be an interesting summer.
Any other questions for Daniel? Bob?
Okay, the remaining 7 items are out of the capital asset fund. The first one we considered was the 161015B. This was last year's update for the floating dock. The request now is for $83,850. I'm sorry, the numbers are confused me this morning. $83,850 with additional 10% contingency if needed. Last year, $43,650 was approved for both the floating dock and fuel pump. One had budget of about $40,000. Unfortunately, the contractor went south and went out of business, apparently. After considering these costs and not having, and also the fuel pump not being included in this $83,000, the committee recommended and approved that with this be tabled until we got a figure on the cost of the fuel pump. So the committee has tabled this.
Daniel, do you have any further comments?
The only thing I'd like to say about the dock itself is the suppliers and the vendors, the manufacturers, everyone is imploring me that the cost of materials is going to continue to rise for the floating dock. And just over 2.5 years ago, we got a quote from the same contractor that was just about $20,000 less to do the exact same work that he would be doing today. They basically have a monopoly on our lake. There are 2 companies available that can provide the floating devices approved by the BRA for our lake. The way I understand it, there's another company that's willing to come out again next week and revisit. At that time, we may possibly get a better price. And as far as the fuel goes, I had intended on getting all that pricing for next month.
I have a question, just on the docks and more, the only bidder on this, is he associated with Dex and More? Or do you know that?
The dock builder?
Yeah, it's called Docks. Oh, it's called Docks on Demand.
Docks on Demand,
okay.
Correct.
Not anything to do with Dex and More. Okay.
Not that I'm aware of.
And as a result of this being tabled by Finance, will this give you opportunities to, you said another company is going to come out and take another look at it?
We will see what the other company has to offer. They are actually the company that built CDOC for us. I have had issues in the past contacting them and them taking care of warranty work on that dock. Docks on Demand is very reputable. They've been around for many years, and they are the #1 recommended dock building company by the BRA. So they have the least amount of problems with the BRA in building docks.
Daniel, I've got a question. I guess my understanding was that if we went ahead with this project, they wouldn't start it until November. Is that correct?
Yes, November, December. The reason why I came forward with it now is due to the supposed rise in cost of materials. That number was only good till the 1st. So at that time, it may change. We may get fortunate and it change for the better, but from what I understand, the possibility of that happening is slim to none.
Okay, and so we're missing this boating season anyway, so it's
correct.
It's not really a hot priority now.
Correct, but again, I would like to just let y'all know, 2 years ago it was $20,000 less.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel. Bob?
I have one question that since we're not going to have the dock and until November or December if we manage to get this approved. What are we going to do to improve the current dock? Accessibility and bumper protection, et cetera.
I have looked at several bumpers, and that's kind of been in limbo until the status of this was established. So we will be going out and installing bumpers that will go all the way down to the bottom of the lake, and I'm going to space them apart about 6 feet apart, all across the front of the current gas dock.
Thank you. Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. The next item was the clubhouse pole pump. Since this, really, the committee just reaffirmed the email vote that was taken by all members of the Finance Committee as well as the Board of Directors. So again, that's being recommended to proceed. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't want me to repeat that, I hope. The next one was a utility van, 1710-18, for a cost of $27,975 with a contingency of a 10% contingency. That was for a used van. And after discussing this and looking at the other bids that were presented for new vans, the committee is recommending the Board of Directors approve $30,000, including a 10% for contingency to put shelves and whatnot in the new van that present one does not have. So.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Basically, what we're looking to do here is replace the multi-use van that you see back here on the back dock. The current van is having mechanical issues. To repair it, actually, it's I believe it's 11 years old, and it's also having 11 or 12 years old, having mechanical issues. The paint is peeling off of it, and it's undersized for our needs. Currently, the storage system inside of it is not adequate for what we use it for, and when the clubhouse needs to use it, we have to spend quite a bit of time cleaning it out so it can be ready for them. The goal here would be to get the next size up a van and the proper storage system inside where we can lock our things away and they would stay out of the way, and also including a ergonomic ladder rack so you don't have to fight to get the ladders off and on the van.
Does it have any value, the current van?
I had one company that gave me a trading value of about $6,000.
So is it possible that this $30,000 might then be effectively reduced to $24,000?
Well, once you include the cargo system and the ladder rack to outfit the van properly, and probably not. I will try to get the best deal I can on the van.
If this is approved, when do you anticipate the actual receipt of the new vehicle?
Well, the thing is, in the past, I've purchased multiple vehicles for PPOA, and in the past, I've been allowed the vehicle dealerships have allowed me to put a refundable deposit on them and hold them. They're no longer doing that. So it would be a matter of shopping it, seeing what's available, what rebates are available, and then getting the van. I would anticipate getting it within probably 30 days of approval.
This might be an appropriate time to mention our current situation with your mechanic.
Yes. I am actually down a mechanic right now, so we're looking if anybody knows a good wrench turner. I would love to have them. It would shorten my days significantly.
Yeah, so getting rid of a van that needs that kind of work right now for a new one that hopefully would be at least run for a while without that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for Daniel?
Yeah, how many miles does that van have on it now?
It's just under 70,000. And for whatever reason, it's having issues.
Yeah, it seems to me that, we can fix mechanical issues. And we've been trading a lot of equipment because they're worn out and broken, and I just wondered, maybe we should start subbing out some of our maintenance requirements.
We do when it's needed, but as far as preventive maintenance goes, we have been very capable of handling that, and extensive maintenance. I have rehabilitated multiple pieces of equipment out here, some pieces of equipment that were sitting for years not being utilized at all. So I am very capable of maintaining this equipment. It's just a matter of time, and it would be nice to have a full-time mechanic again to do that for me.
And the current van's 12 years old.
12 years old.
Any other questions for Daniel?
You didn't tell them about the mechanical problems you're having?
Yes, I did.
Okay, the remaining items are all approved by the Finance Committee and hope that the Board of Directors will consider them for approval. The next one was the 17-10-14 picnic tables for Shady Pavilion in an amount of $7,000. We get a change of people.
Keith, go ahead.
What we're asking for is picnic tables for Shady Pavilion down at the campground. This is a new capital. Was budgeted this year, and committee recommended moving forward. And what was selected out of committee is a thermoplastic covered steel, perforated steel, ADA compliant, commercial grade picnic tables, 6 of them to go down in the pavilion. It's pretty straightforward.
Any questions for Keith?
Yeah.
Just one question. Would these type of picnic tables be suitable for the marina dock and/or the patio?
Yeah, I don't know why not. You're talking about when we redo the stuff down there, buying the same kind of table?
Are they the type that would be suitable for that environment?
Yeah, they're outdoor rated commercial tables, and they're thermoplastic covered, perforated steel with a 12-inch seat base to be more comfortable. So I imagine that there's a lot of tables to choose from, whatever design you wanted down at the marina, to pick from.
Okay. Would it be...
They weigh about close to maybe almost 300 pounds apiece.
Yeah, that's good, because that way they won't walk around.
Right.
Is there any cost benefit to ordering a couple, 3 more, or would they be the same price no matter what?
Well, no, they drop based on the quotes, and the quote I got actually is a very good quote. It came in after I had prepared the AFE, and then I had to modify it, that they came back with even a better quote once their senior manager. We've ordered from them in the past, so they do have price breaks. I don't know the number where it became a price break. I know at 6, got us a price break, so it does drop the price.
So these are not going to be moved?
They could be moved if you needed to clear a little bit out of the way, whether down in the pavilion. But
it's a pavilion, then. These are not. Are these tables the kind that have attached benches or
attached benches?
Attached benches.
Attached benches to be permanently down in the pavilion area.
Okay.
But not anchored into the slab, because if it needs to be moved.
So we don't have to bring our
exactly
chairs down.
You don't have to bring them. There'll be 6 8-foot tables.
All right.
And this is our new capital, by the way.
You got another question?
Would it be possible for you to get with the marina people to see if they could incorporate into that and share the cost of some? Because I know one table for sure is in...
You mean you're looking to purchase a couple and ride on in on the same thing? That might even give us a better price quote. I mean...
That's what I was trying to see, if by going volume we may gain enough to make it worth the effort.
Yeah. Who's...
Get with John Thomas or John Roberts.
No problem. Before we place the, if this gets approved, place the order, sure. I have no problem doing it. If I can get the number, then I'll contact them again and see if I can drive the number down more.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're here for.
I hope we got the money to pay for all this. Highly unlikely at this point. Looking at 17-10-15 pool umbrellas in the amount of $4,000.
Bob, you want to say anything?
Keith, go.
Okay, all right. Well, you're talking to this side of the mic so they can hear you.
Sorry about
There you
that.
go. What we're doing here is looking to replace the swimming pool umbrellas at both locations. We typically almost have to go through a whole swap out every 2 years. Sometimes maybe we'll get 3 years out of them. So what I quoted originally was around 10, and based on the number. So some of the figures that you see in the AFE is a different number of umbrellas, because my goal is to get as many as we can get for the price that's approved on there, and that price does change constantly. So, sooner I can get it approved, the sooner I can shop it and lock it down and get proper stands. So
How many?
they are commercial grade, 9-foot market outdoor rated umbrellas, fiberglass ribs, and with going with steel bases on there.
How many are we buying?
It's going to depend on how many we shop, right? I mean, I hope I can nail down at least 12, but if the price changes, it could push us back to 10.
Keith,
Yes, ma'am.
how much are you asking for? Are you asking for the 5,000 that was budgeted, or are you asking for?
What was I asking for, Janice?
4,000?
4,000.
You're asking for 4,000?
Yeah.
On a budget of 5.
Yeah, it was a budget of 5. I'm asking for 4. I'm pretty sure I can shop and get at least 10, if not 12. If I get 12, that's fantastic.
One of the things you mentioned yesterday in the Finance Committee is the problem with vandalism. Well, I won't say vandalism. I would
Member usage.
member misusage, I would
Right.
think would be a better term.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to address that, because this is member property and we are spending member money. So that means members need to take care of what is purchased on their behalf. But, of all the areas, the committees, your area has the most member usage. So you see the most misusage. Do you have any idea, just off the top of your head, how much is it cost every year to
Oh, my gosh.
replace the member misuse of?
I wouldn't even know where to begin, honestly.
Ballpark. I mean,
Huh?
I think members need to know that we're talking about a lot of money that.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of money where members misuse and break stuff. I mean, that's the majority. I rarely get the full recommended usage time out of anything that we allow members to touch.
Well, maybe that's something that, you can work with communications on to put out some kind of awareness for members, some kind of campaign.
That'd be great.
To take care of what you own, treat it as it, because it is yours.
Absolutely. And in that same thing, we can put, let's not throw plates against walls and let's not break in the buildings.
And I would like to see that start soon, because we're at the beginning of the summer season, and so, the sooner we can, do preventative work, the better off we'll all be.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Keith.
Yep. In fact, maybe we can get that in the Collins special article. I'll get with Darrell. Maybe we can get a special little section worded up there to remind people to, try to treat it like their own.
Any other questions for Keith?
17, kitchen ice machine, the amount of $4,063 with a 10% contingency. Annual.
Okay, so what we're looking here to do is replace one of the current ice machines in the kitchen right over here. The ice machine we are looking to replace, the bin, I believe, was purchased in '91, and the ice machine itself is about 10 years old, something in that neighborhood. The main issue that we're having during the kitchen remodel, we did not anticipate adding on to the inside of the kitchen wall because of the condition of the wall. So what we ended up with is a smaller space for our current ice machines to sit in. Both ice machines that we have are forced air. They're like a condenser unit on the outside of your house. That's what cools them down. So what and of course, any piece of equipment that you have that runs hot, it's going to age, and it's not going to last as long as it should, which it's really honestly lasted a long time anyway. But the goal here is to replace one of those forced air units with a water-cooled unit, and that will greatly help not only The ice machines last longer, including the current one that's there, but it will decrease the load on the kitchen as far as conditioning the air and end up helping the whole building, in essence.
So if we replace it, though, it sounds like if we put the current one in a more favorable position, it would still make ice somewhere?
It is possible to rehab that unit. We typically keep them and replace them as older ones go out. Currently, the oldest unit we have on site is down at Mr. Underwood's shop, and that would be probably the goal, to move that unit down to his shop and utilize it where it's in open air and can breathe.
Do we have an ice machine at the PAC?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Marina, where
Yes,
else do we have?
There's one there.
We have ice machines everywhere. There must be about a dozen ice machines on property.
Any other questions for Daniel? Thank you, Daniel.
For the ACE is 171019, tractor replacement in amount of $30,511. This is a replace the 1990 tractor. I think Janice presented this.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about this. This is for golf course maintenance, replacing a tractor that we purchased in 1999. Tractor is requiring constant repairs and has exceeded its useful life. We were able, through the Club Managers Association, which I'm part of, get a great deal from Austin Turf and Tractor. We get a discount and a $5,000 trade-in. And so through Austin Turf and Tractor, we're $5,000 and $6,000 below the other two bidders that we got, and $4,489 less than the budgeted amount when we did the budget.
Does Michael have a mechanic as well?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
All right.
Any other questions on the tractor?
Okay, that completes the ACEs. In addition, the committee reviewed the month of April and the 6 months operating statements. Without getting into review of the detailed departments, for the month of April, our revenue is $595,000. Cost of goods, $86,000. Our operating income, therefore, was $508,000. After you consider the expenses of payroll at $282,000 and the operating expense of $150,000, our revenue exceeded our expenses by $66,000. For year-to-date, our without considering depreciation, we were $99,000 over our budget. As far as road and drainage fund, our year-to-date was $343,000 with expenditures of $127,000 from prior year, with a projected year-end balance of $291,000. There's a serious question whether that ending balance will remain there, or probably be a little less, quite a bit less. So basically, with the capital asset reserve fund still is anticipated to have a year-end balance of $1,751,000. We're anticipating that balance will go down tremendously in the near future when we have a project that's been pushed back, which is a golf course irrigation system. So don't get excited because we got a lot of money sitting out there at the bank. It's not going to be there long, especially the way we're spending it. That's the report that I have from the Finance Committee.
Well, and that's not the only project that we'll be considering, and because I know we're going to hear from House Food and Beverage about
Well, it's going to be interesting because based on the numbers that I see in long-range planning coming forward for those projects, the ones that we have, is indication that you will go below the $500,000 in the very near future.
Okay, who's next?
The ACC had our regular meeting May the 18th. We had a little bit of a surprise. guy that was on the ACC for years came back to visit. Thane Baker visited with us, and he knows a lot about ACC, and we enjoyed having him. We had, this is the good news, we had 4 new houses that were approved this past meeting. One is in Sundance Place, which is Orchard 12. Another one on 6319 Weatherby Road. Another one on 6431 Pinehurst Drive, and 6410 Inverness. We had 19 various projects that you never cease to be amazed at the stuff that we come up with that people want, and that's great. That improves our community tremendously. But there were 9 of those, everything from fences to patio covers and all that, those kinds of things. Excuse me. I would like to say one thing, and this is not part of what I normally would say, but I've been associated with the ACC and the board for almost the 12 years that we've been out here. I have watched us consistently spend several $1,000s every year working on drainage down around the river and places like that, giving no consideration to where that water's coming from or if it's going to impact something downstream. We've done this, is it Lodi? Is that the word, the survey?
LIDAR.
Okay. Well, I was close to right. We've done that. It's a shame to put that on the shelf and not use it. That should be used completely to determine where the water's coming from, who's allowing it to come, and what is being done to prevent it from impacting stuff that we spent a lot of money downstream on. It'll never help, it'll never finish this drainage project if we don't take that kind of an approach. And thank you for the soapbox.
In the Infrastructure Committee, want to say a little something, Eric, about LIDAR and how it's going to be used?
In no way is the LIDAR data being put up on the shelf. I mean, for every future project that we do, the LIDAR data will be used by the engineering firm to do their designs. And previously, what they would do, part of their cost was to send a crew of surveyors out to do the surveying of the land, and that cost money. That cost, $1,000, $2,000 per project. From going forward, we won't have to pay that any longer. So the other part of the LIDAR data is the ability to do the simulations of, major storms and to see what the effect of a major rain is on a given area in Pecan. And so we've seen a demonstration of one of those around Monticello Circle. And for all the next 4 drainage projects that are on the list, we'll have a simulation done to see exactly what is happening in those areas. And so that will help the engineers, design the proper solution. So hopefully it's not thinking that we bought the LIDAR data and are not using it because it's going to be used quite extensively.
Could I ask a question? And I'm not sure if this is the right time to ask it, but I'll ask it anyway. This goes back to the Westover drainage issue, because I believe Daniel said that we did not use LIDAR as part of this study, because LIDAR came after this was already studied. Is that correct?
Yeah, the engineering firm did the same analysis by hand, the old way for the Westover. And so we asked the engineer, well, do you want to go back and redo it? with the LiDAR data, and they were, no, we did it properly the first way. So they're happy with the way.
But it's not their money that we're spending our money. So wouldn't it be prudent for us to take the time and use the LiDAR technology?
We paid them once already to do the analysis for Westover, and if we asked them to do the LiDAR, we have to pay them again. So I think they would achieve this, the engineering, they said that they were completely confident with their initial study that they would get the same results as the LiDAR data.
And if I may just interject really quickly, the engineering company did verify all the elevations shot on the ground with the actual LiDAR study. So they went in, verified the data that the LiDAR came up with the data that they got on the ground. What the LiDAR is going to do, as Eric mentioned, as we move forward, is provide us that savings of having to have a whole team on the ground actually getting all these elevation shots and finished floor elevations of the area. That's already going to be provided for us in the future. So they did verify the elevations on the LiDAR study with the actual ground team work.
I think one more thing is the question you had was the process that we've been following as far as fixing the drainage stuff was starting at the river and working our way back. So it's not that we're ignoring the upper areas of our neighborhood, but we're starting at the lowest level and working up. And I understand that's the proper way to do this kind of thing.
Well, I think that's exactly backwards. I think we should establish the high point of all of the high points that creates drainage and follow that drainage to the river. Find out why it's coming and whose responsibility is it. If you read the statutes, there's a lot of definitions of surface water and runoff water, and we're allowing water to come into what we're responsible for fixing with no control or help from the person that's creating it. I'm not sure how to respond to that. I know that the standard practice since before I became involved has been to start at the river and work back.
If I may interject one more time here, the reason why we start at the river and work our way up, now an analysis, just like when we did the basin case study, we did an analysis of the entire area. And the goal is to start on the downstream side and work your way up. But you cannot complete or start a large drainage project upstream and expect all the stuff downstream to keep up with it. So in preparation of preparing the drainage system for the water, you have to increase the volume capacity downstream first. You can't increase the capacity upstream or you're going to flood everybody and everything out on the downstream side. Bottom line.
Well, I agree with that 100%, but doing the repair work downstream without having some idea of how much water is going to be put in that in the future.
We do have an idea. We take all the analysis. We study the entire basin that's draining into that farmost downstream area. We take into account any future development, and we take into account all the topography, all the elevations, everything feeding into that area. And so that downstream side is upgraded to its fullest potential at that time, taking into account any future development and any possible changes. Now, there are always some unforeseens that could happen. So what we typically do is we increase the size. Say, all the calculations say you need 680 feet per second of volume through that pipe. We will increase that by 10 to 15% depending on what the potential is. We do not want our drainage system to reach its capacity at the 100-year level. Now, there is going to be times when we exceed that 100-year flood. So everything that is being designed is to a 100-year flood. And I might add that a lot of what we have replaced out here has not even met 10-year flood specifications.
That's correct. Okay.
Any other questions?
I'll watch it. We'll watch it and see what happens. I think that's got to be handled that way. Unless you know what you're having to work with, you can't design what you're trying to design.
And I'd be glad to show you anytime, Jim, if you want to step in the office, I can show you the process and the studies that we've done and the basins that we've done work in.
Okay.
Long-range planning next?
I'll make it fast. All right. Long-range planning had their first meeting with the new committee, and after introductions were made and reasons why, they wanted to be on the committee and the value they thought they made, we went over some historic past to bring everybody up to speed, went over the existing database and the elements of that database, and we're going to spend more time on the long-range plan that was put together by last year's long-range planning committee. But we spent the majority of our time talking about what our goals were for this coming year and our direction. And the committee is all in agreement that we're going to work very closely and with a unified presence with infrastructure and finance committee and long-range planning to really prioritize what the financial and asset needs are for our members' needs for our existing assets, for either replacing those or repairing them, as well as what are going to be down the road, the new assets that are going to have to be built. We can't focus entirely on either one of those. They both have to be focused on together. So that's what we'll be doing at our next meeting. But it's going to be an interesting year.
Okay, who's next?
Thank you, Dr. Kamen. Brenda Palmer needs to leave early, so Brenda, Entertainment and Sports and Rec.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Archery Air Gun sponsored again the Wet Vets. They had a shoot on May the 12th with approximately 20 people in attendance. On Saturday, May the 13th, the PPAA hosted I've got the title this time, the American Airgun Field Target Association match. There were 30 shooters in attendance, 8 from Pecan and the rest from Kansas, Oklahoma, San Antonio, Tyler, Austin, Brownwood, and all over the DFW area. Archery camp will be on the 19th and 20th of June. The airgun camp will be on July 20th and the 21st. Sign-ups are at the PAC. Pickleball. The Fort Worth Pickleball Ambassador has asked for our summer hours for possible tournament play here in Pecan, which would be very interesting. And the Pickleball Association is looking at the possibility of a free play at the outdoor court during our Memorial Day weekend. I don't know if that's come to a final decision or not, but I think it's a great idea. Please be advised that the summer hours for pickleball have started at the PAC, so you need to check for the times. Tennis. A number of players at the tennis center has increased to the point they are having to turn people away. The PPTA is actively planning fundraising events to help with the cost of court number 7. Please be advised, if you didn't know, there is aluminum can recycling at the tennis center. Revenue goes towards improvements at the center, so please take the time to bag your cans and take them to the tennis area. Call the center for summer camp sign-ups. The PAC. Plans for snag golf lessons are underway at the PAC. Mary Erks will be the instructor, but we need volunteers to assist her. If you're interested, please call Joey at the PAC. And then the summer schedule is out, and I am not going to try to list everything, all the wonderful events that we have planned for our children and grandchildren this summer. But you can check your May columns, and they're all in there. But I do want to mention, new to the PAC, Tai Chi is starting on Fridays, starting June the 2nd. Tai Chi is a wonderful form of exercise and meditation that's good for old as well as young, so you might want to look into that. Special reminder, school lets out this Friday, so please watch for our children on the roads. Let's all be safe, have a safe and active summer. And remember, check your columns for all the wonderful ways to be healthy in Pecan. Okay, New Hat Entertainment Committee. Pecan's Got Talent was a huge success with 11 performers and 180 people in attendance. Thanks go out to Monty Lewis, Eva Markle, and all the wonderful, talented performers. The bar has definitely been raised for next year. Our unique car show was this past Saturday, and the weather was iffy and we were a little worried, but the skies cleared and we had the perfect weather for a great time. Amazing cars, wonderful music, delicious food, great camaraderie. Special thanks to Ron Bernier and members of both the Entertainment and Sports and Rec committees for all their hard work. But the true stars of the day were our wonderful car owners, one of which is our president, and the treasures that they shared with the rest of us. The committee and club management are busy planning new and improved ways for Pecan members to have even more fun in the coming year. Karaoke continues monthly, more band nights, street dances, and date night events. 4th of July parade and street dance. Family luau is coming back, and Veterans Day tribute, and on and on. There will be many exciting opportunities for you and your family to get out and enjoy time with your neighbors. That's it.
Thank you. Brenda, any comments?
Yeah, I'm speaking for the women who love water aerobics, and apparently we don't have a trainer for this summer. Is there any possibility of getting somebody to do the water aerobics?
Yes, that has been broached to me as well, and we are actively looking for someone. I approached one lady, and she said, that was just something she didn't feel like taking on, but we do have it out there, and if there is anyone interested, please contact Joey at the PAC, because that is a very, very popular.
Have we contacted the Y? Yeah. They don't have anybody?
You may have mentioned this, Brenda, but you have a subcommittee looking at the playground?
Yes.
Could you tell us what's going on with?
Well, yes and no. It was tabled at our last meeting because there is so much we have to find out before we can address that. There are, as Keith could tell you, there are very many new rules and regulations to playgrounds. And I'm going to be honest with you, we are seriously considering taking it down to just one at the PAC and making it the perfect playground for our kids. So until we get all the rules, all of the requirements together, that committee we do have a chairperson. That person is aware of what we're doing. She's coming to the meetings, and as soon as we're ready to start, we'll let everybody know.
So there will be, you're thinking of taking all the equipment out of the parks?
That has not been decided, but if we have to take anything out to replace it, it has to meet standards, the current standards. So there are 1, 2, 4, besides the PAC, there are 4 existing parks that have equipment in there. So we have an option. We can either make one really nice one. That's what the people seem to want if you listen to what's going around. Right? You can stand up anytime, Keith. Or we can piecemeal it. And I think what the people want is one very nice, well-prepared playground.
And Keith is working with a playground consultant that installed the current equipment at the PAC, so we're waiting on some bids back.
Exactly.
Well, I'm just reacting to what happened when we pulled apparently a defective unit out of one of the parks, and immediately somebody complained about it. The whirl around, or whatever you call it. People do use those areas, and their kids go down there and use that equipment.
Yeah. Okay. Dollar figures are about to fly.
Yeah, I have the certified playground installer working on several different plans, and the first thing on the table is we're trying to get the PAC one up to a good safe standard, making it a nice park. We're going to increase its size slightly. We're going to add a much safer surfacing to last us, because with safety surfacings, there's a big variance in price, and the lower you go, It costs a lot more operational dollars to maintain it. We're trying to find a good safety surfacing that would require minimal operational dollars and will serve us for at least 10 years. And once we design, the PAX playground, our plans are to relocate 2 of the pieces of playground that are still good down here by the swimming pool playground. We're going to decommission that playground, and we're going to take those pieces of equipment, relocate them to the PAC, put them all in, and have a proper safety surfacing and refurbish. Good news, I just found out this week, some of the issues we were having on the PAC playground is going to be covered under warranty. So that's the great thing with it. It's going to save us thousands of dollars with the Burke equipment. We're dealing with proprietary equipment, Burke, and that stuff warranties some of these parts up to 15 years. So we're at 13 years. We're just on in, and they're going to put the parts on order. We don't have a timeline yet because some of the stuff is very back ordered from them. But when they get it, we can get that over there and installed in the safety. Then the second thing I have going, I also had them work on a plan to look at all the beach parks. Our biggest problem on the beach parks, other than the fact that the equipment is old and out of compliance with the CSPC and the ASTM, requirements, it's in a floodplain. And being in a floodplain, there is no safety surfacing recommended to put inside that floodplain. So one of the ideas is, we're going to decide how we want to do this. You could decommission all those parks, and then we could even build a bigger one up here. Or we can try to reduce the footprint of the safety surfacing at the current parks, see if any of that equipment can be retrofitted to meet some of the standards, and then say pull out anything that wouldn't be. The parts that were pulled was called a multi-action swing, and by that inspector, he deemed that to be the most dangerous piece of equipment we owned on PPOA property. That's the reason why it was yanked immediately, based on his recommendation. We're going to try to save some of the other equipment, and we're going to look into what kind of safety surfacing we could put in that we'd be able to redo after a flooding situation. Now we also have another option. On 2 of the parks, you could relocate some of the equipment up above the majority of the floodplain. So that's another option. But typically, whenever you move any piece of equipment, just the cost of moving an old piece of equipment is typically 1/3 the price of a new piece of equipment. So there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle that we got to put together and decide, how we're going to do it. So, but the first thing we're addressing right off the bat is the PAC. We want to get that rolling, got the warranty parts going. We've even bought a plastic welder, so in the future, when some of this plastic, breaks through whether abuse or wear, where we could do a temporary repair. We're going to get after that. So we're spending quite a bit of time on it, and hopefully we'll have a better, thing coming. As soon as I get more information back, I'm going to put a package together, and we will run through some of it with the committee, try to go with the recommendations of what we should do with the playground parks. He's also willing to come out and do any kind of presentation we want. So I'll probably have him come out and address our committee at some point, and then when we go to the big stuff, we might invite him to come on out and answer any questions from the board at that time. So,
Keith, a quick question. I
Yes, sir.
understand that the city of Granbury put in some new equipment in their park.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that to see what they use for safety surface?
Yeah, it's not what we'd recommend. They went the cheap route. They went pea gravel. Pea gravel is the absolute worst that you can put down. It is a safety surfacing. Pea gravel has to be maintained at a minimum 9 inches of depth to provide, for the fall level, and it's a very difficult way to maintain that depth evenly through those areas. And it also has a problem of hard panning. The stones grind together, creating a very hard, level down underneath. I'm not interested in doing what they're doing because they'll probably pull it out. The guy that does the Burke equipment told me their company stopped putting in pea gravel over 15 years ago. He refuses to put it in. So if they're going to go the cheap route, the recommended cheap route is called engineered wood fiber. It builds a spongy mat. Problem with engineered wood fiber, it won't hard pan, but the problem is you have about a 25% loss per year. So every year you got to till it, you got to move it on up so it doesn't degrade enough, and then you got to top it on off. So that may be the answer for our park playgrounds. I asked him about using pea gravel, and he said, the best option for us would be, if we're going to keep the park playgrounds, would be the engineered wood fiber.
Keith, we were visiting in New York City last week, and I looked at some neighborhood parks, and what they had in their safety zone areas were interlocking.
They used tiles.
Well, they were interlocking like rubber.
Yeah, it's a tile system. That also can work. The problem is a lot of the stuff in the north, that stuff has a tendency to degrade under high UV and, and heat, and you'll have delaminations. If that starts to come on up, then you're creating, some trip hazards. It's not really the recommended in our zone, to put that kind of stuff. It can be pretty, but what we're trying to go forward with is, the biggest phase now that they've got, that one of the best that they're putting out is similar to AstroTurf. They'll come in, they'll, regrade, you've got your gravel down base to help the drainage, and then they use a mat. There's like a 2-inch cushion mat, and then they come in and lay down the AstroTurf, and then it has a little bit of fill to hold it down, and that has typically at least a 10 to 15-year life, and it requires almost no maintenance, so it will drain, and the only thing that we'd have to do then would be to clear the sticks, from the trees off of it and the leaves. In fact, there's a church, and I forget which church it is. Acton Baptist. They went that route, and they had something before, and I think it was it pea gravel that they had first, or? They had something, but it wasn't long. Yeah, he recommended them not to put that down, and they put it down, and then they came back and they said take it out, and they went with that surfacing, the kind that we're recommending.
You're all welcome to drive by and look at it.
It's nice. It's nice. The kids love it. They love it. And then what typically happens, the high wear patterns, or wear down, you'll see some wear items after, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something. And then what they'll do is in those high wear, like where you exit a slide, where they dig their feet, then what they do is when those patterns are marked, they'll cut that and then they'll retrofit it with a mat pad so to increase the life. So
I just want to comment, Keith, that to our surprise, the playground, condition of the playground apparently was the object of some complaints from members who said, why are we proposing any new projects when we can't maintain what we have? And it was, I think the playgrounds were some of the areas that they were referring to. So this is more important than we had originally thought.
Yeah, I've been working on it for over 10 years.
Yeah.
So, they're acting like it's a new thing, but, we've been working on it. Jim would attest to it. It's always been, a hot topic and had some money in there. But the problem is there is no, when we have that time in our financial life here where we go, we got to really watch our money. That's not the time to address playgrounds.
Well, no,
it was the first thing to get cut.
Yeah, the safety issue and the use that surprises us. So I think the board is ready to consider expenditures,
yes.
And we'd welcome your recommendations sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I'm going to have that shortly because I was first trying to work on the warranty. He was working on both things, so it should be good, and I think in the long run people will be very pleased. So,
thank you, Keith.
I don't want to stop. You got any more?
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll stop. Go ahead.
Okay. I believe Mr. Hartman's going to give the grounds report.
Yes, I'm Roger Merrill today. The committee is full. He was very happy with that. It was a good meeting. They were trying, the projects that they're looking at are the assignment of common areas throughout Pecan that maybe some of the other committees would pick up as far as picking up the trash, the normal pickup campaign. And so you'll be expecting to hear a little bit more about that. The big event coming up on June 26th is the kids fishing tournament around the pond number 10. The committee has kind of made that a project to work with Daniel's and to have that area cleaned up. It's right behind the tennis courts, if you don't know exactly where it's at. That was an indication for me. That's it. Yeah, they're identifying all the common areas, and then from there, try to assign different groups to maintain and keep them clean. That's all I have.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Hartman, any other comments for grounds? Let's move on to Brian Rogers and communications.
Thank you. Just quickly, the new website is the design or framework, I guess you'd call it, of that website is finished, and now we're into the starting the migration of the data on that. We're looking at ways to increase our Facebook visibility there. There's been a number of ideas that have been suggested. In fact, one of them was pretty much met with favor initially by the committee. We'll look into that. We're also looking at working with a couple of three other committees to boost their agendas to the general membership, wildlife, new member orientation, and as I just heard, sports and recreation now. One of the other things we're going to start looking into is see what we can do towards working with AT&T and Verizon to finally get the cell phone tower out here. It was pointed out during the last power outage that the folks down along the river had no way to communicate in the way of an emergency, and so that's somewhat is very concerning to me personally from a safety aspect. That's pretty much the highlights in a nutshell.
Any comments or questions for communications?
I have one comment. On the cell phone tower issue, we had lunch with the Anthonys last month, and Ben Anthony told us that they had a deal all put in place for AT&T to come out and put in a new tower, and for some reason AT&T pulled the plug on it. He said he's working on developing a new contract with AT&T and hopes to get some resolution there. I told him that there are plenty of people on the board and in Pecan who are willing to help him with those efforts if need be, but that's all I know about it.
Great, that's good to know. AT&T has said that basically the request would have to come from the property owner to put a cell phone tower out here. My understanding is, and pretty much confirmed, that AT&T has taken a lease more or less right behind the villages for some property there. So that's already in place. It's, I suspect, just a matter, hopefully just a matter of A, finding a contact within AT&T to sponsor this or champion this request, and B, showing AT&T or Verizon how adding a cell phone tower out here can boost their business.
Absolutely, and it seems to me like maybe the best approach would be to be talking to these folks, whether it's Verizon or AT&T or anybody else, about the safety issue involved. Maybe that will touch a nerve and light a fire under them to do something different, because it is a huge safety issue. I live on the river, and it's a huge safety issue.
Yes, sir, I would agree with that. It's way up higher than the back of my mind.
Has EMS or our fire department ever had problems based on inability to communicate? Do we know?
I don't think that, I haven't heard that they have had problems communicating out. It's highly likely there have been problems with people trying to communicate to them. One of the other things that's come out is for people that live in Johnson County, their emergency calls are actually routed to a cell tower in Johnson County, the Johnson County 911 service, who then has to call back to Hood County, who then has to call our fire department EMS to get someone to service the homes or the situation down around Plantation Beach area.
next Wednesday morning, the commissioner from Johnson County is going to be here for the Breakfast Club. I suggest anybody that lives in Johnson County like I do, be here.
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Rogers?
Michael?
Yes, go ahead.
I contacted AT&T 2 or 3 weeks ago and registered a complaint and issued a safety issue also. And a week or so later, I got a call back. It had been escalated. And they went in and did a database and said that, wow, this place is a sea, his words, a sea of microcells. With all the people, and he was very surprised. I pointed it out that the economic activity we have here, the size we are, the growth we've got, the new lots that are developing, i.e. new customers, potential for them, and the horrible reputation that they're getting as a result of the bad service. He agreed to write all that up and escalate it up further. I would suggest that someone who's other than just acting like they know, that really does know, call them up and continue to do this. I think some feedback to them, I really believe it will help. And so I suggest the board and members get on the horn.
What was this gentleman's name?
Do you have a name and telephone number?
Obviously, I don't have that right now. I'm not certain whether I've got it at home or not, but they are sensitive to this, and I think you can get their attention by talking about the safety issue. They'll come back to you.
Did you get in touch with that person by calling customer service or what?
I started off with a 611 call, and it went from there, and it continued up, and I think it ended up with 3 conversations before I let it go.
Yeah, I sent something out last month on this issue. If you call AT&T, you have to say, I want to file a complaint. You file a complaint, and they transfer you off to 6 or 8 different people. You have to keep saying, I'm sorry, I want to file a complaint. They log complaints for 36 hours. So the more people that call within a 36-hour period, the higher the problem is escalated. If we spread it out over 6 months, they'll say, yeah, we got lots of complaints, but there's no real pattern because it's not happening right now. It's something that happens as people take the time to call. So they have the AT&T Marks the Spot app that doesn't work if you have no service. But I would continue to tell people, call AT&T, tell them you want to file a complaint. Don't accept anything until you get to the complaint department, and then tell them who you are, what your phone number is, where you're at, and that you want to file a complaint that there is no service. And we can continue to escalate it. If you have a name, I'd be happy to put that name out to everybody in Pecan with their phone number, and they can call him.
Ross, also, if you file a complaint, AT&T, one of the first things going to ask is for your account number as well as the phone number.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, Lou Turner, Food and Beverage and House Committee.
Our House Food and Beverage Committee met on the 9th of May. That was 3 days after we received the preliminary footprint from our vendors that we had gone out to from the Hospitality/Architectural Committee. We took a preliminary look at those, and we then asked each of the golf committee as well as our committee members to take an in-depth look, and we met again on the 17th and kind of discussed all 3 of the submissions and concluded basically that none of them met all of our requirements as a standalone response. We did, however, have taken a preliminary selection of one of the submissions that we will try to tweak with the firm to see how we can
adjust or what they submitted into coming closer to meeting the vast majority of what we consider necessities for our joint facility. We will also ask at the same time to relook at whether or not that a total rehab of that lower level is the best alternative, and would they be willing to provide us an alternative solution. And that meeting has not taken place yet. Sometime next week, I think, is the target. Do we have a new date?
I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I'll have to get with Mr. Thomas and verify that.
Yeah, okay. The committee continues to work on our detailed long-range plan for the clubhouse, and that includes not only the 19th hole and the pro shop, but also the rest of the facility to include the lower level, to make sure that we have, in fact, a plan in place that we believe best meets our needs for the coming years and satisfaction of our membership. We'll also continue in all of the efforts with management in terms of continuing to identify enhancements to our training plans, as well as how we can better produce timely responses in terms of getting food out of the kitchen on time and as quickly as possible. So it's a continuing effort, and both John, Thomas, and Michael have been very supportive and cooperative in taking all the efforts that we can do to enhance our service to our membership. That's all I have.
Anything else for Mr. Turner? Real quick on membership, we're up to 3,020 members. Had a very active orientation this Monday, so we have a lot of people moving in, and so that was good to see. And that is plus 15 net members year to date. I believe Doug Green's going to give a Marina report.
The Marina Committee met 2 weeks ago. It was very well attended. All the members were present. We had, in addition to that, 2 guest members and 3 board members all in attendance. Very productive meeting. High on our priority list. The Marina's priority list is the new dock and relocating the gas pump. You know, it was strongly felt that we could actually turn the Marina into a pretty nice profit center if we do it right, with all the boating traffic up and down the river. We have an action item still on the table to get together. Hopefully it'll be this coming week to come up with a request for a proposal for a concept formulation to put out for rebuilding the country store there and the grill. And so that's the current progress.
Any other comments, questions for the Marina Committee?
Yes, Daniel, earlier you had brought in some compound for spiders. Is that working, or is that a system that will work? Is it manpower intensive, et cetera?
We actually sprayed last week. The spiders were dropping like crazy. I've got the guys down there webbing today, and we're going to spray when they're done webbing, and they will be power washing the decks tomorrow. The spider spray seems to work well. It is all organic. The primary ingredient is actually rosemary oil, and it's working well. It seems to work well, and I will be looking at getting a cost at what it would take to get an automated spray system for the docks to use this particular product. But we'll see how manually spraying it goes, and if we could keep the spider population down, we may only be looking at monthly or bi-monthly treatments anyway.
Are you also doing inside the eating area, the outdoor eating area by the grill? Because the rafters were just filled with webs.
We are not, as far as myself and my staff, not doing anything with the grill area at this time.
Do we know, is that being treated or power washed? I mean, it's really, that's where folks are eating and you look up and you see all that.
That's one of the projects they have to look at. Next question I had was on we had a project to reference the stairs going down to the docks. Is there anything going on with that, or is that a dead issue?
As far as the stairs go, I went out and got pricing to replace the stairs, and I believe the question at this time...
That was $51,000, if I remember right.
Correct. And I believe the question is at this time was, are we going to replace them, or are we going to wait? And because technically, if we do anything with those stairs, it's got to be done right. So we're looking at ADA. Which set of stairs do you want to make ADA? Do they all need to be ADA compliant? And with the condition of the marina and the stairs going down, you would be looking at ramps, switchbacks on every dock, which would drive the price up maybe even 10 times what the estimate for replacement of the stairs is.
Okay. We had one person complain about the decking on the A dock. Has that been repaired?
All loose decking that I have noticed has been re-secured. We are going to be looking at planing some of the other decking down, and in the process of power washing them, we will determine what deck boards do need to be replaced.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions for the marina? Okay, let's go to infrastructure and Eric De La Rosa.
Okay, we held our meeting on May 2nd. We had a quorum of voting members present. We were just missing one person. We started off going around the table, introduction to the new members, because we've got 4 or 5 new members this year. The next thing we talked about was the changes to the committee resolution, and then our process for getting our minutes approved quickly and over to Mary as soon as possible. Then we talked about the meeting that Daniel and I had with the board about the LiDAR data, and then brought the new members up to speed on what the LiDAR data exactly was and how that's going to be used. Then we were waiting to see if we could obtain from the meeting from the previous month, if we could obtain more bids for the 2 big projects that we're working on, and we were not able to get any more bids. But what we did get was the one company to combine. If they got, like we talked about already, if they did both projects, they did reduce their price. So we went ahead and voted and approved, which we've already talked about, the ACE for those, and sent that on up. The last thing that we talked about, new business, was I got a little bit of history from the members on the 20-year plan, how that had been developed. I've got the latest copy of the 20-year plan from Janice, and we're looking at that. I'll probably pull a couple people from the committee to, get that up to speed and see where we go from there.
Comments, questions for infrastructure? Thank you very much. Let's move on to Vance Blaylock and Wildlife.
Vance Blaylock, the new Wildlife Committee Chair. We had our meeting on the 12th of this month. We opened the meeting by discussing how we process the minutes from the meeting. We have decided and voted to accept a process where we email to all members the meeting minutes to be read over and any changes to be submitted and it to be approved during the month by email. That way we won't spend quality time in the committee going over minutes of the previous meeting. We moved on to the perception the community has with the Wildlife Committee. It seems to be pretty much negative. So we're going to start by requiring all committee members, when they come to a meeting, if they can't enter with a positive attitude for the meeting, then they should wait in the hallway until they can adjust their attitude before entering.
Can we all institute that policy? I think that'd be a good one.
Yeah, there's no way we can expect the community to have a positive attitude about us if we don't have a positive attitude about ourselves. We discussed the deer management, and the community pretty much perceives the Wildlife Committee as strictly a deer management tool. The process of managing our herd is working. Over the 3 years I have been a member of the committee, I have seen the survey numbers go down. I've seen the recommended trapping numbers by the state go down. Although our trapping goal has pretty much remained the same of 400 to 600 deer, we have never trapped that many deer. We've always ended the year with an excess of our budget. And with those thoughts, we decided that we need to expand our focus beyond deer. But before I move on past the deer, we have interference, we have vandalism, and we have destruction of equipment. Evidently, the $500 fine that is presently offered for any information leading to conviction or capture, the conviction of the arrest and conviction of someone interfering with our trapping process is not enough to make a neighbor turn in another neighbor. If I'm going to incur the wrath of the neighbor, I want it to be substantially higher than $500. That increase in fine can come from our budget, which we have been under for all the years I've been on the committee. So this is not going to be a drain on any finances from the existing budget.
Can we, so you're talking about a fine, but can we offer them a reward for information leading to?
There you go. That's what I should have said. That's where I presented it in the meeting. And just presenting and I threw out a number of $5,000. That is a sum that just by the sum itself may deter someone from riding out, just turning off our trapping units, destroying our cameras, turning off our feeders. Just the sum itself may deter. And then the first time anybody collects it, I'm sure that will definitely be a great deterrent.
So how are you going to, are you proposing that, I'm guessing the board would need to approve that kind of action. Are you going to formally propose that?
I will. As soon as I work with Michael on getting all the particulars, I will present that for formal approval. But that was just discussed. It was batted around, and then we moved on.
Comment. Why don't we make the comment about it being a felony and the penalty that goes with it also?
It's been done.
In the column as a very large splash once or twice. I think that would also make it to point out.
It's on the article, but it's in like size 0.1 print. So I think, to your point, if we're going to do this, we need to write an article in the columns about the whole deer management issue, and one of the things that we're going to do is, if we decide to go with a reward.
But if we could post it by one of them, we know what pages or what things people look at, mostly put it somewhere in there.
Good idea. We'll do that.
Comment, but I thought I understood it to be a misdemeanor and not a felony.
The question is it a misdemeanor or a felony?
It's a felony. Interfere with trapping, state licensed trapping or hunting.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Blaylock? Okay, Ray Lewis, Airport Committee.
I've not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Part of the wider focus in moving past just our perception of deer management we have decided that our committee will submit articles at least quarterly to the columns, mainly informational, and 60% of them will be written from a female point of view. They will be, the first one will be dealing with the early stages of a fawn's life. Then we will move on to either migratory birds, rabbits, squirrels, hawks, predators, any kind of animals that we deal with in Pecan. We want our neighbors to realize we're more than a deer management.
Okay, can I interrupt and point out on the same page of the Hood County News that a secondary article was that there's a deer in the attic, and so it describes how a fawn climbed into the attic of a pecan plantation home. Jerry Oldhouse and his friend Dave Boldenau working in the hangar attached to the Oldhouse home in Pecan and discovered the baby deer stranded in the attic of the hangar.
Yeah, that was interesting. I thought about that for a while. Another area we thought we want to concentrate on helping our community and providing service. We looked at doing sister events put on by other committees and other entities in Pecan to have an informational desk or informational site there with where the community members can come ask us questions about what we're doing, why we are doing things. Because I think the more information we get out, the better we will be perceived and better we'll be able to conduct our business. We decided that we would explore providing a few live traps to supplement the county efforts, that if a member will call me as chair, I will run a live trap over them. They will sign a paper saying they received it in good working order and will return it in kind. This will just help them feel like their committee, their wildlife committee, is really interested in them and not just killing deer. It was suggested that we explore stocking the Brazos River around Pecan during the winter with rainbow trout to increase the fishery and activity on our river. And all this will be taken from our existing budget that we've had for several years. I think is right around $100,000. So we're not going to be asking for any more money. This because our deer management cost is going down because it is working. And I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Blaylock. Any other comments or questions? Let's go to Ray Lewis and the Airport Committee.
The Airport Committee met at its normal scheduled time of May 10th. Among other areas, he's hitting the highlight. We have an issue with the drainage in the ditch west of the airport. Daniel said he had no problem keeping the ditch cleaned out, but just to bring the board up to speed, over the years, the ACC and others have approved culverts going under areas for private access to the runway. In the past, way back, there were there had been culverts put in there every second or third home or something like that, and now there have been some new ones installed. So the issue is not maintaining the ditch. The issue is the culverts that have been put in there, and how do we do that? At some point, we may have a drainage issue that'll come back and have to be dealt with as a result of that. We don't have an answer for that right now. The GPS approach continues to fester. One of our members flew up to Oklahoma City and met with 2 or 3 levels above the normal working level, trying to expedite that, and they agreed to keep the pressure on the local contractor. So hopefully that will get back into active status. Proud to report that the EAA has a fully executed agreement with the homeowner, Sam Butler, and construction has started on private land for a hangar, with them having an extended lease where they can have their meeting minutes on the new hangar that will be built on private land. Our subcommittee continues to work on plans for the renovation of Plainview Park. We gave ourselves a 3-month deadline to try to answer a whole list of 20 or so questions that I put together that we needed. We will not have an answer on the GPS approach. That's the one that whether or not the location of that and the helipad affects the approach, we will not have that until the EPA, until the FAA pontificates, and we don't expect that to be momentarily. But the others we're working good on, and we hope to take a vote on the June meeting to move forward with that. As you know, there was some damage there during the storm. The current awning was totally destroyed. As Daniel had predicted, that it was beyond its useful life, and the material was rotten, and almost like he created the event, a little wind came up and away went the awning. But we continue to work. We've got a good new committee, brought on one new member, and we've got a good working group and making good progress. Thank you. Oh, I had one other point. Back on the parks issue, totally off the wall, but I was meeting with my son who lives in another large subdivision who had a similar issue of needing parks and couldn't afford it. And they found a contractor that went to work, designed the system, and provided materials, but then the whole community came out with a number of work days and built it and did all the labor themselves. They therefore were able to save the money. I just love the optics of something like that, of bringing the community together to solve a problem rather than just throwing additional money at it. I don't know whether that could be done with our case or not, but I think it has good optics and might be something that we could be looking into.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, I just, I'm not clear. Are we going to have that canopy replaced, or are we waiting to see where it may be that it's going to be moved? Or
the intent would be to replace it with a more permanent structure, something akin to what's down in the campground.
So we're not going to replace the canopy?
Permanent. We're not.
Okay.
Any other comments for Mr. Lewis? Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Gordon Johnson and Ty Harper, Safety and Security.
Well, first of all, I wanted to apologize for having missed the volunteers dinner luncheon. Had a Minnesota family emergency that kept me on the phone for about 2 hours that day trying to help resolve some issues for them. And fortunately, it worked out well. We have 2 new members on our committee. One is Mark Pump and the other one is Mike Reed. I'll speak a little bit more about Mark later, but both have significant experience in safety and security issues, especially security in their past. I have written a letter to the columns that will be appearing hopefully in the June issue. If not, maybe the July issue. Mary has received that and forwarded that for me. I appreciate the interest that people in the plantation have in safety and security. It's my opinion that a lot of people in the plantation do not understand what security really means in terms of our security forces on the plantation. It is not law enforcement, it is security enforcing the rules of the homeowners association. A big difference between the two. And so I've tried to articulate that in the letter that I submitted for the columns. Hopefully you'll see that and agree that I've addressed that issue decently. Mark Pump, as I mentioned earlier, is now going to be overseeing the Crime Watch. We've discussed what that means for us on the plantation. We thought maybe we ought to call it Neighborhood Watch or something of that nature, but Crime Watch is really kind of a national organization. And when people speak about Crime Watch, that means that we'll have people that will be using their own vehicles. They'll be having placards, these magnetized type things that stick to the side of the vehicle. Something goes on the back of their vehicle indicating that they will be driving around and they will have the Crime Watch signs on their vehicles. They will be coordinating with one another. There will be more than just one or two people out on any given night. And it won't be just from 11 o'clock at night until 2 in the morning. And then all hell breaks loose after 2 o'clock in the morning because people are out then knowing that nobody's going to catch them. So they will be then coordinating with one another, with security, and if necessary, coordinating with the Sheriff's Department if there's something that looks like it's akin to being a criminal activity taking place. So Mark has coordinated that with David Leverton, who has overseen that in the past. He discontinued it a couple of years ago. His wife was in very bad health. And he said that it didn't seem like there was that much interest in people doing it anymore. But Mark has come in with a fresh attitude, coordinating it with David, and with John Shirley, who is a retired Houston police officer, I believe, who lives on the plantation, who was willing to add his advice and wisdom to Mark in his work. Bob Zimski will be chair for the next 3 months. During my absence, I'm about to depart the plantation to head north for the summer. Wife is excited about a brand new grandbaby that's due to be born in June, so we're going to be there for that. And she can avoid what she calls the inferno of Texas for the summer.
Ty?
Go ahead, man. I just had a question for, no, go ahead, Ty, and I'll come back.
We had one dispute in the meeting that was a non-member speeding, and that was upheld. We discussed the Crime Watch. We also discussed golf cart safety, and a lot of people have observed four-wheeled vehicles, people not driving safely, and just keep in mind that driving golf carts, four-wheelers, and all that stuff. The reason you can do that is because this is private property. There's no safety devices, there's no safety restraints on golf carts, there's no safety devices on four-wheelers. So you really should use more caution, and you also have to have a driver's license just like you would on a golf cart for any of those vehicles. I personally observed a woman driving a golf cart holding an infant at the shopping center. It terrified me because if anything happens, the baby's flying, and it's just I just really want people to use caution when using golf carts and four-wheelers. We also talked about people have observed what they think people are tailgating into the gates. In one particular incident, we were able to identify the person, and it was a member. They were just in a hurry, driving too close. One of the things that was brought up is the little light that flashes when you come in. Well, that light doesn't flash anymore. I've replaced the bulbs, but that didn't fix it. So we're going to go a little deeper and see if we can find out it's possibly a power converter. I'm working with the manufacturer on getting that fixed. In the month of April, we had a lot of incidents that happened. We started out on the 3rd with an assault that happened over in Bell Chase. On the 4th, we had some suspicious activity reported. People said that there was somebody asleep in the car down by the dog park. When we got there, we were unable to find them. report on the 6th of a man and woman in a golf cart having an altercation over on Hickory Hill. On the 7th, mailbox damaged. On the 11th, somebody reported 2 pit bulls attacking a lawn mowing man. When we do not handle vicious animals, so we in turn called animal control, and when they got there, the dogs were gone. Later that day, there was a vehicle crash at a building site. It turned out to be between 2 contractors. On the 12th, we had a report of a old black van driving around early in the morning, and it turned out to be the paper delivery. On the 13th, as a door-to-door solicitor, that we actually tracked him down, talked to him, and he was the father of a member that lives here, and he thought it was just an opportunity to make some extra money, so we told him that was against the rules. On the 18th, we had a report that somebody found meat with glass in it that somebody possibly had thrown over their fence to try and hurt their dogs, and that was reported to the Animal Control and Sheriff's Department. A snake report on the 20th. On the 21st, a disruptive person here at the clubhouse was arrested and taken away. Fireworks on the 24th, and it turned out to be in the river, which is outside Pecan property. On the 28th, somebody reported somebody in their driveway taking pictures of their house. Well, it turned out their house was for sale. It was a real estate agent taking pictures. And on the 29th, we had a report of unsafe behavior at the Pack Pool. Some young men were doing flips and dives off of the lifeguard chair. And security arrived and talked to them about it. The boys were very polite, very cooperative, said they'd never do it as long as we didn't tell their parents about it. So we had, on the overview, we had over 5,000 calls in the month of April at the club, at the security office. 9 loose pets, 4 barking dogs, and 2 animal calls. 2 vehicle crashes, 2 mailboxes damaged, 7 suspicious activities reported, gunshot reports, and welfare checks. We wrote 40 citations in April. 28 of them were their first speeding tickets, 3 flagrant violations, 4 issued for sprinklers hitting the runway, loose dogs, 1, trash out early, 3, and 1 person that was their second speeding ticket. So it seems like if you get a speeding ticket, you're less likely to get a second one. Most of the citations were on Plantation, but we did have 3 on Ravenswood, 2 on Westover, and 4 on Bell Chase, and the rest were on other streets. 25 were to members, 11 to guests, 2 contractors, 1 employee, and 1 vendor. The reports to the Hood County Sheriff's Department, there was 100 calls, or 100 what they call incidents in this area. 27 of those were close patrols. That's where the Sheriff's Department drives by a location for whatever reason, keeping an eye on a particular place. And 17 of those calls were just phone calls. So everything from them actually driving by, coming out, to phone calls. There were 100 incidents in Pecan during the month of April. And that concludes my report.
Comments, questions, Ms. Francis?
I do want to, my husband was driving the ambulance out of Pecan at about 1 a.m. the other night, and he saw 2 motorcycles come. He was going out the west entrance, and he saw 2 motorcycles come into Pecan. They didn't go through the gates. They came through the area that's between the gates where you have the 2 yellow poles. I don't know why there's not that wire across there that prevents that type of entry. I mean, it's pretty easy to go also around the gate, too.
We can put that wire in there.
And it's the same thing on the front. You've got 2 big poles there that people can enter from coming into Pecan on the exit side. They could do that as well.
Boy, if you do that, please put some orange wire, orange flags or something on it, because that's the only way on my bike I can get out without getting off and climbing around. And I go through there, and I know a lot of other bikers that go through there on that also. And if I don't see those, you can kill somebody if I go storming through there and don't see that there's a wire, because the gate comes down pretty close.
Well, maybe there's a reason why it's open like that, but I'm just saying it's not, there's other people using it differently. They're not, yeah. So y'all can talk about it and see what works.
Ty, quick question, status of the security system, the new gate entry system.
I have 2 bids, working on a third now. We have the first one from ABDI and the second one from Dwelling Live, and we're working on the third bid right now.
Ty, during the meeting that there was a lady that was complaining about the tailgating and the line of sticker. Was that the one that turned out to be?
That's the one that turned out to be a member that was following, right?
Okay.
I failed to mention when I made my report that David Leverton will be voting in my absence. He is serving now as an emeritus member of the committee because he had been a member for many years. And so when I'm absent, he will be voting in my place when Bob is serving as the chair. And Vince Sprinkle is our representative from the board, and I appreciate the fact that you're with us on that.
I have one other issue on the tailgating. I've got a car that had the screen and the system would not go through the metallic screen, so I back a number of years ago got one that goes on the license plate. I could stay back 100 feet, and that thing is strong enough that it activates the gate. So a lot of people might think I'm tailgating because the gate won't come down, and there may be others, and so members may not understand that's going on, and it may be worth pointing out that not everybody that, because the gate doesn't come down, that may not mean they're tailgating.
I have a question about the 100 calls to the sheriff. What's the monthly run on that average? That seemed high to me, just so I can pay attention. It's usually between 40 and 60.
And we have 2 members of the committee that will be speaking with the Sheriff's Department about changing the title, because incident, means something to somebody that, maybe activity would be a better word for it, but that's their report, not ours. And we need to we're negotiating with them about changing the title on that so that people don't get alarmed for no reason at all, other than something that's linguistic.
For the Crime Watch activity, how can someone join that group? Are you going to advertise for that?
Yes, indeed. Mark Pump already has about 30 people that have volunteered to serve on that committee with him, as well as myself when I'm back. And it will be opened up for announcement in the probably the next, or maybe the July or August columns, to advertise the fact that if people are interested in serving on that, just call him. Next door Pecan, one of my favorite activities a day is to read the Next Door Pecan, and he will also be putting that on there.
What is that?
Any other comments or questions for safety and security? If not, Mr. President, I believe that concludes.
I would, before we go away, I just would like to, first of all, acknowledge the committee chairs or the representatives that came to make reports. And then I'd just like to ask, and maybe Michael or Mary could send out a note. First, make a note of those who were not here and invite them. We understand when people can't make this meeting for whatever reason, but if we could ask them to send a representative so that we have every committee meet at this meeting each month. I think that's important for us to do.
Mr. Chairman, you might ask them to read the resolution. It tells them to do that.
Well, so maybe we just need to remind them, but it's important. And again, I acknowledge and thank all those that do come every month, and wish we could improve that.
That concludes our report, Mr. President. So.
We're adjourned.